Your guide to the truth. TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Agree to Disagree here on the TNAM Radio Network, here at thenewamericanmedia.com, because the news always matters. My name's Brian Engelman. I'm your host, as I have been for 6 years already. Thank you so much for being a part of the party, part of the program, part of the network, part of the social media teams. We're everywhere. Look, Instagram.com/thenewamericanmedia. You gotta join us over there. Our game is strong. We're funny, we're interesting, and we're timely. And we make you think and laugh. Check it out. The Instagram page is very good. Also, Facebook. We are doing a ton of great stuff on Facebook. Facebook.com/thenewamericanmedia. You can also get to that, the Facebook link, and our Twitter feed if you just go on thenewamericanmedia.com. On the middle right-hand side, that's where you can link up with us on Facebook. That's how you link up with us on Twitter. Directly, we're at American_media_. You can all do that from thenewamericanmedia.com. And that's where you click play to listen live when we do our shows. See, the other thing that you need to do, perhaps this might be the best place to really get the proper snapshot of what we do. Subscribe, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. In fact, that's probably one of the only places where we're getting monetization, where we're getting the love, the ad revenue over there. So if you watch those videos, it helps us. A couple pennies into the wishing well. It's all appreciated when multiplied up. So please do that, and we have a Patreon page as well. Just search for our name. Anyhow, we're going to talk with John Ziegler today. John Ziegler is a radio talk show host. He's over at freespeechbroadcasting.com. He's been on the program before, and we were talking about the Penn State case. You know, a lot of people thought it was pretty cut and dry, but that might not be the case. So let's bring him back into the program. A couple days after his birthday, I do have to wish him a happy belated.
John Ziegler.
John Ziegler, this is Brian Engelman, and you are live on Agree to Disagree. How are you doing today, sir?
Hanging in, Brian. What's going on?
Oh, just living the dream, and happy to have you join us again and talk about all the silliness in this world. But before we get into the Sandusky stuff and some of the political stuff, I was starting to tell people about all the social media, and you are a social media demon, John. You are something else. You're like a Tasmanian devil over there. You have an opinion every 5 minutes. It's fascinating, and the conversations that are sparked on your page are really good, because I haven't really listened to your radio show, but I know all of your stuff from your Facebook feed. So we all get information from Twitter, Facebook, different segments of who we are and what we do. So real quick, I want to, before we get into the specifics, tell me about what you've been up to since you were out here on KFI when I first moved out here all those years ago. How does your media empire work? What do you do? Tell us about it.
I don't think we have enough time for everything that's happened in the last 10 years, almost 10 years since I left KFI. Oh, my gosh. Let's see. I've done 3 documentary films since then. I've been on the Today Show 3 times. I've written a couple online books. I've been a columnist for Mediaite. I did a nationally syndicated weekend radio show, which is now turned into a weekly podcast, which people can find at freespeechbroadcasting.com. And I've gotten embroiled way deeper than anyone ever should have for the past 5 years in the entire so-called Penn State, Joe Paterno, Jerry Sandusky scandal, which has really changed my life in quite a number of mostly negative ways. It's the best work that I have ever done or ever will do, and it has damaged my life and career in innumerable ways. So that pretty much tells you everything about that case that you need to know. But I've also gotten married, and I have one 4.5, almost 5-year-old child, a girl, and any day now we're expecting a second child, a girl. So things have changed quite a bit. You know, I just celebrated my 50th birthday this week, and I celebrated my 40th with only a couple of guys, one of whom was Andrew Breitbart, and I was thinking, wow, boy, the last 10 years hardly anything's changed in the world in those 10 years, and obviously Andrew is gone, and Donald Trump is president, and I'm married with kids in a completely different place in the world in my career, and Breitbart is a completely different website than when Andrew was alive, and I'm not sure he would have been happy about any of that. So life is strange, that's for sure.
Well, first off, happy belated birthday by a couple of days, and happy early arrival in a couple of days, hopefully. So now that that's been bookended properly, I think Andrew Breitbart would have loved to see the complete destruction of the fake news, which is all of the corporate entities that have really had everything on lockdown until the internet. They didn't really see this coming, but it's a wild card that they weren't prepared for, and they've lost their ground. I think
maybe. I mean, I think there's certainly elements of Trump and what it's done to the mainstream news media that Andrew would enjoy for sure. But the Andrew that I know would never have allowed his website to become a mouthpiece for a liberal con man, which is what Donald Trump is. And I think he would be embarrassed by what his name will now forever be associated with, which is Donald Trump. So it's sad, and but a lot like with Trump in general, there's a little bit of good, but to me, it's overwhelmed by the bad, and the price we're paying is far, far, far too great for what we're getting in return.
So yeah, you are one of the more critical voices, and I think you're fair. There's a big difference between being unfair and being critical, very critical of this administration. And I think it's important that everybody remain critical of any situation, of any administration that comes to power. I don't think anybody should be given a free pass. And that really is the role of the media. Have you felt as though you've been able to articulate your concerns to your audience, John, in a way that's maybe helped show them some different perspectives that they weren't looking at the situation beforehand?
I doubt it. I mean, as a never Trump conservative, and I agree with you. I think I've been very fair to Donald Trump. But few Trump fans would agree with that. But when he has warranted it, I have praised him, and when he has been unfairly criticized, I have defended him. I wanted to like him. I've met him actually backstage at the Today Show, ironically, where we had in retrospect, a fascinating conversation, because I now, with 2020 hindsight, think that our conversation was the germ. I'm not going to claim that conversation was why he ran for president, but in retrospect, I now believe that our conversation was all about him running for president, and I didn't realize it at the time because it was March of 2014.
What was the cliff note of that, John? How did that go? Just in general.
Well, I had been on the Today Show the day before because of the whole Penn State Sandusky thing, and I was backstage because Matt Lauer's producer had wanted me to talk to Matt to see how I thought that the whole thing went. And as they were getting ready to change, I don't know exactly how it all happened, but within a couple of minutes, the entire Today Show staff, including Lauer, were all within a few feet of me, and so was Donald Trump. And Trump had tweeted a couple of times his support for Joe Paterno in the whole scandal. It was clear that he had, at least publicly, had an instinct that this was, a railroad job on Paterno. And I wanted to thank him for that, and also naively, I wanted to give him a chance, since I knew everything about the case, since I ask me any questions he might have, or to know that I could provide any insight he might wanted on the case, because I was sure he didn't have the time to delve into the whole thing. And basically the entire very short conversation immediately turned into how much people in Pennsylvania love him.
I'm surprised to hear that.
And I was like, that is really odd. Why, first of all, does he care so much about the people of Pennsylvania loving him? And why does he not care at all about, the actual facts of the case or learning anything about it? And I he gave me some contact information for his office, and I contacted his office and sent him some more information on the case. And he actually, he doesn't do email, so he had his people. This is what he does. He has his people print out an email, and then if he thinks it's warranted, he will sign a response on the email. So it's like both a response as well as his autograph, which I guess you're supposed to be excited about. And so then they email me I guess an image of that, and then they ask me, do I want the original copy of it? And I'm like, well, sure, what the hell? I mean, so I was deigned with the honor of having a handwritten response to my email from Donald Trump urging me to keep the fight up for I guess for justice or truth or something. And that's actually, if you go to my Twitter and my Facebook page, that's now the profile picture, because when he became president, I switched it out from, it used to be a picture of me and my wife and George W. Bush backstage at the Tonight Show, and now it's a letter from or a note from Donald Trump. So that's the law. But in retrospect, it's clear to me he always saw Pennsylvania as the key to a potential presidential run, and as it turned out, Pennsylvania was the key.
He's playing chess, and people are playing checkers, man. And that's...
No, he's not, actually. See, that's the biggest mistake people make with Donald Trump. He's a checkers player, and people give him credit for playing chess.
Okay, fair enough. Now, I know some people that I feel like are some of the most laid back. You call them potheads. I know people that seemingly walk through life unaffected, not caring, not planning, not strategizing. But some of these people that I know, and I think most of our listeners have run into these cats. Everything turns up roses with these dudes. Everything. It works out with the girl. The job is going fine. Oh, this bad thing turned into a blessing. And you're just like, man, this guy is putting literally no effort in. So for me, if he's not playing chess, maybe it's just his instinct. Maybe it's the instinct of just...
I agree that Donald Trump has very good instincts in a lot of ways. He is the best media manipulator that there has ever been, by far. It's not even close. Bill Clinton was an amateur in comparison to Donald Trump, and even Barack Obama wasn't nearly as good as Donald Trump is. Trump gets the media. Why? Because like the media, he's a narcissistic moron. So he's able to put himself in the seat of the members of the news media very well. They have the same level of lack of intelligence, lack of education, the same goals, the same needs. They're the same. So he is able to interpret exactly how the average media person will respond to any particular stimuli, because he's exactly like them. And so he's very, very good at that. He himself has referred. I use this clip on my radio show now podcast all the time. He is referred to what happens to him as magic. That he believes that he's got magic. He has said this, which is of course a very dangerous thing for the commander-in-chief of the
Disney.
United States
You could
Armed
understand
Forces to believe that he has magic, because there is no magic. Because eventually the magic runs out, the luck runs out, and I think we're already seeing that with regard to this presidency. I mean, so far. There really hasn't been a lot of magic, and with regard to health care, it blew up in his face, and I think that the aura of magic is quickly dissipating.
No, and that's definitely possible, but I look at that going, all right, as an observer myself, I would look at that whole situation and go, all right, Trump's been here for 3 months. This Paul Ryan character and all these Republican clowns have made their career about doing this. They've ran on repeal, replace, get rid of Obamacare. Oh, we've got to do something different. I view them as the ones that failed him to bring a strong piece of legislation that had the right backing behind it. I fault them for that.
So your boy is just a naive, easily duped dunce who didn't know what he's getting himself into and supported a bill because he was that dumb and got screwed over by somebody else with no apparent motivation. Wait a minute, I thought he was the guy who told us that he was a great deal maker and that we were going to be winning so much we would get tired of winning, and nobody else understood the system the way that he did, and that only he himself alone can fix it. What happened to that, Brian?
You're very right. Now let me ask you this, though. If LeBron James go into the Miami Heat, that first season when they formed that dream team, the first year LeBron deferred to Dwayne Wade, his team, his city. LeBron went down there, oh, really? You form your big three, you can't even win a title. You think you're one of the best to ever play. All right, tough guy. You know, he came back a second time. He didn't stop after the first thing failed. He came back the next time and got it done. As a Cavalier fan, that worked out for me long down the road. But
well,
I'm not ready. I'm not ready to rule Trump out just yet.
No,
and I do
don't
fault
think
Congress
he's
a
done
lot.
yet, but I don't think he's done. But he is definitely in a downward spiral. And this, the Russian story that won't go away is not going to help. And I believe, I think there's a very good scenario where he ends up getting reelected, but getting reelected effectively as a Democrat. And I wrote a column today for Mediaite, which makes the argument that the path we're currently on is incredibly similar to the path that Arnold Schwarzenegger took to reelection in California, which was to completely abandon the Republican Party, embrace liberalism, and use your celebrity to be able to survive. And I think that Democrats are going to have a very interesting choice to make with Donald Trump, especially if they take over the House in the midterm elections, which is quite possible. I think it'll be close. And that is, do they want to impeach him, or would they rather have a Democratic president? Because I think he'll do whatever they want once they have the majority. Because he has no conservative principles. He has no principles at all other than what's good for Donald Trump. So there's not going to be anything. If tomorrow the House and Senate were controlled by Democrats, Donald Trump would be a full-blown Obama Democrat. No question. Zero. The only reason why he ran as a Republican is because he knew that Hillary would beat him in a Democratic primary because of the whole birther thing. If it hadn't been for the birther thing, Donald Trump would have run as a Democrat. And by the way, he probably could have won.
Hillary was so beatable. She was so beatable.
Yes. She was terrible.
Oh, just the worst. And then they propped her up and brought her out of her coffin again. She's been infused or something with some more. I've seen her walking around lately. Let's play the game. If you had to put it now, who would be the Republican challenger 4 years from now? Who would be a Democratic challenger? Would Hillary go yet again to try to take this thing? Do you think she would have any chance of getting that nomination again?
No, I don't think she's going to be that dumb. I mean, and the only way they go with Hillary is if there's literally nobody else to do it, which is possible. I mean, it is possible that they just can't. Their bench, the Democratic bench, is so pathetic. See, this is the price that they pay. I'll use your LeBron James analogy. They had their own LeBron and Obama, and everything was about LeBron. And he was such a big star that he blocked out all the light to anyone else. And so now they have no bench. Zero. That's the only reason why Hillary was the nominee this time around. So, we now have established that you need to be a massive celebrity to run for president. I mean, that's basically what you have to be.
But Bernie Sanders, if Wasserman Schultz and those crew, if they didn't do what they did, that was Bernie's to lose. It was the superdelegates that puppeted her up.
Bernie Sanders didn't come close to winning the Democratic nomination. He didn't come close. That is a myth. It's a complete myth.
Then set me straight on that. Set me straight on it. Take the superdelegates out of the equation. How much of a blowout was that again?
Well, you can't. First of all, you can't take the superdelegates out of the equation.
Well, that's what I was saying that made it.
I mean, you can't. But second of all, Hillary got way more votes. Way more votes. By the way, Hillary got way more votes than Bernie Sanders, got way more votes than Donald Trump, and got more votes, people don't know this, than Barack Obama in 2008, and still lost the nomination. So anyway,
I guess that's bad luck.
The point is that to me, I think Michelle Obama would crush Donald Trump in 2020. I think Oprah Winfrey would beat him. I think Tom Hanks might beat him. But we're talking. It has to be somebody of that ilk, and a normal
Clooney.
Clooney, yeah, I doubt he would do it, but I think Clooney could do it. But the point, I can't believe we're having this conversation and not kidding around. But this is the world we now live in.
It is.
And but I don't think there's anybody. I don't think there's any Democratic politician that currently has the star power to go up against Trump, especially when he's going to be running as a guy who is that is going to be very liberal. I mean, he's going to end up doing a lot of liberal things, and if the economy's halfway decent in 3.5 years, then I think he's got a great chance to win re-election as a Democrat. He could. I don't think this has ever happened in American history officially before, but he could basically, for all intents and purposes, have one term as one party and a second term as another party.
He could be independent the second time through. He doesn't need the money. He's got his own media network called Twitter. I mean, I could see him just ditching the party altogether and fighting two of them. Fight one Republican, one Democrat.
That would be interesting because and that is a scenario where I could see some that would be interesting.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
If things really went badly and he decided to run for president as an independent, and then it was a three-way race, yeah, he would probably win at that point. Although maybe not. That would depend on who the other two were. But I don't. My guess is we're not going to get to that extreme because to run as an independent, even as an incumbent president, it would still take a lot of money, and I just don't think Trump's that rich. I just don't think I really don't. I just think that I think he's a con man through and through.
I went to an event. Oh, something good.
No, I just think that's why it's very simple. Why would he not release his tax returns? Because he's not very rich. That's why. It's very simple.
I went to an event. It was ACN back before the iPhones. It was this video camera device, this telephone video device to buy, and it was like one of those pyramid marketing things. And went, some friend of a friend, and I met up with him, and he took me to say, I'm like, wow, this is total con job. This is total snake oil salesman. This is that pyramid scheme that annoying friend always hits you up for. Like, hey, you should do this thing that I'm doing. And it's like, no, leave me alone. Stop selling to me. So I will always have that impression of Donald Trump when I look at him, when I think about him. I didn't endorse him. I did end up voting for him. I'm hoping some good comes of it. I think some good has already come from it, and we'll see how the rest of it plays out. But this weird lingering thing with Russia, with Flynn, and the trying to get immunity. You alluded to this a minute ago, John. Is there any smoke? Is there any fire behind this smoke? Is there anything really going on here that the Democrats weren't also doing to snoop on them and gather intelligence? And I mean, what are we looking at with this?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I wrote a column about the smoke versus the fire with regard to Trump and Russia. And boy, there is an awful lot of smoke. I haven't seen any fire yet. In fact, I haven't seen anything 100% inconsistent with there not being much fire. I think it's still plausible that what we have here is a situation where everyone in the Trump world was so afraid of this issue that they started acting guilty. And then you have maybe a few coincidences thrown in there, too. Now, I'm hardly a naive person, and I can make a hell of an argument right now that Donald Trump is acting like a very guilty man on this whole Russian issue. And so to me, the one thing I can't get past in saying that this is much ado about nothing is why Trump has reacted the way that he has. Why has he been so consistent? In fact, this is the issue he has been most consistent on over any other, which is being soft on Vladimir Putin. Why? Why that one? Why has he gone so far out of his way to try to distract from everything Russian related? Why has he reacted in such an over-the-top manner to all of these stories if they're just fake news? And I guess I'm also reading tea leaves, and I think, to me, two things really interesting happened that didn't get a lot of play in the last week on this, from a tea leaf reading perspective. And they're going to sound silly, but if you understand Trump, they're not. Take a look at what's on or at least last time I checked, and I guess yesterday I was in the supermarket. Check out this week's cover of the National Enquirer. Now, the National Enquirer is not a credible news organization on most things. Occasionally they are. But here's what they are. They are a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. They will publish whatever Donald Trump wants because their owner is a buddy of Trump's. And we've seen this numerous times before. The front page story, headline, picture, everything, is Donald Trump getting credit for effectively eliminating a White House Russian spy. And the story is about Mike Flynn. Now, so for the National Enquirer, especially this week, to do a front-page cover story that clearly was not designed to get an audience because it's not a National Enquirer type of story. It's done purely for some agenda that's not apparent. For them to do a story flipping the narrative 180 degrees to where Trump's the hero because Mike Flynn is a Russian spy, that is significant. Why are they doing that? I would submit that the most rational explanation for why they're doing that is Trump knows he's in big trouble and he needs to 180 degrees flip the narrative so that at least his cult will stay with him. Similarly, Sean Spicer said last week at a press conference that Paul Manafort was a minor figure in the Trump campaign who had only worked for a very short period of time. Paul Manafort was the campaign chairman and was there for the key months where Trump ended up winning the Republican nomination. Now, why would you do that? You would only do that if you're preparing yourself to be able to create a narrative where Manafort was irrelevant and I was the one that outed Flynn. Neither of those two things make any damn sense. But you only do that if you're afraid of something. And that's why my guess is there's some fire. How big the fire is, I don't know. But Trump is certainly acting like there is one.
All right, John, so the National Enquirer is the canary in the coal mine. It's very interesting, yes, because there is a very established connection between Donald Trump and the National Enquirer. And to look at it that way, as whatever they're putting out, consider the source. Consider the source. It's like from the movie Memento, the tattoo, consider the source. I'm going to have to pay more attention to that because I'd be very curious to see. It's not like stock projections. You know, if you learned what's
the explanation for the National Enquirer doing that story?
I got nothing. I didn't even know that story was put out there. I mean,
Check it out. I mean, it's not for selling newspapers.
It's not a salacious, titillacious. It's
right.
not some sex scandal or a sex change
right.
or some sort of baby drama or a divorce. I mean, that's what those are normally about. This one is this. You know what this one is? This one is in Newsies. When they have to go sell a story about the strike down at the dock is still continuing today. They're like, we can't sell this. We can't sell this. No one wants to buy this. That's not a headline. You know, like that's a very bland, boring story in theory. I agree.
Right, and so therefore it has to have a reason behind it. And for them to be outing Mike Flynn as a Russian spy that was found out by Trump, and that's why he fired him. When, by the way, you know, there's no evidence of that. And if that's the best scenario, by the way, think about that. Donald Trump, who sold himself on the guy who would hire only the best people. I will hire the best people, the very best. He ends up hiring a Russian spy as his national security advisor? And that's a good story for him?
Oh, this is going to be interesting.
There's something wrong here.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff wrong here. And look, I know you have something else you have to do. I was going to split the show here.
I can keep talking. I'm good to go if you want to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because I want to hash this out, but I mean, you just spent this past month was a very important situation with Jerry Sandusky. So, I mean, I could talk Trump all day because you and I last time you were on, I said, man, I got to get you back to just talk politics, but, you know, I don't want to keep you too long either. So, you know, I'm fascinated with everything about this presidency. It's an unprecedented presidency. It's something unlike we've ever seen. The world is changing. It's upside down. The levels and modes of communications. Like I said, Trump literally runs a media company from his fingertips. When he tweets, that is the news. I mean, I can't remember a president ever doing it that way before because they haven't been able to. This is the first time.
No, it's definitely changed the way the media works, and probably forever, and not necessarily in a good way. I think it has definitely led to some good. It's how Trump won in a large part of way, but I think it's also going to be very difficult for him to govern that way. And as far as the Sandusky thing, I mean, just to give people an update, since the last time you and I did a very extensive interview on this whole thing, I hope people will go to framingpaterno.com, which is my website, because there's been a ton of stuff that has happened in the last few weeks, and there was just a trial that ended last week, which I attended in Pennsylvania for the former president of Penn State University, where he was acquitted on the two major charges, but convicted, just as I predicted, on a relatively minor misdemeanor, which will be overturned on appeal because it doesn't even fit the statute of limitations.
What were the worst? What were the worst things he was charged with?
Conspiracy and child endangerment, felony child endangerment. He was found not guilty in both of those. And the jury foreman just gave an interview yesterday where he said that he regrets even the one guilty verdict, that he wishes that he had held out because he believes that Spanier was completely innocent, which he was. I know Graham Spanier exceedingly well. I've probably spoken to him dozens of times for many hours. I've met with him. There's no chance in the world that he is guilty of anything. Penn State didn't cover anything up because there was nothing to cover up. And I know that sounds insane to people who have not followed the case, but the most extraordinary element of this is it's not even close. And anybody who has looked at this closely, who wasn't being paid or getting famous to do so, it has concluded exactly the same thing as I have, including some very prominent people. And that this whole case was a sham. There was no child sex abuse, and Jerry Sandusky did a lot of stupid things and a lot of weird things, but not because he's a pedophile. It's because he grew up in a completely different era and got caught in a perfect storm. And Penn State paid out $100 million to people who were not abused. And this whole thing has been the greatest travesty of its kind I've ever heard of, and a tremendous transfer of wealth from the taxpayers of Pennsylvania to lawyers, local sports car dealerships, and casinos, because that's where most of these guys are spending their money. So hopefully it'll run out fairly soon, and eventually the full truth of this case can come out. But I am quite positive that I'm right, and unfortunately I'm almost as positive that I will never be publicly vindicated, because the truth no longer matters in this society of ours. There's actually a lot of similarities between the emergence of Donald Trump and the evolution of the Penn State story, and it's not just because of the connection that I spoke about earlier. It's very, very similar in a lot of ways, including how Trump won the Republican nomination. I will always believe that basically what ended up happening was that a lot of people who could have stopped him figured there was no way this was going to happen, so why would they get in front of this freight train and risk personal injury? Well, the Penn State story is very similar. A lot of people who knew what was really going on figured someone else would stop this from happening, but no one did, because no one wanted to get in front of the freight train, because we don't live in an era anymore where people will risk anything for anything other than themselves. Our founding fathers routinely, pledged their life, their liberty, and their fortunes, and now people won't even risk getting criticized. There was a Penn State board member who got destroyed yesterday by USA Today because he had the gall, and I know him well, to suggest that the victims of Jerry Sandusky are so-called victims for whom he's losing sympathy. And the pearl clutching that went on was hilarious. Oh my God, can you believe he said that? And the reality is he said that because he knows Jerry Sandusky is innocent. He has access to far more information than anybody in the media does. He knows the people involved. And when I emailed him and I said, Al Ward's his name, I said, Al, please don't back down. because what you said was true, and he gave me a 4-word email response: back down ? Not likely. So
Wow.
it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But he's getting destroyed everywhere on social media because people don't understand the case, and we live in a PC world, and no one cares about facts or truth or logic. And this whole thing is, there'll never be a greater travesty of justice that doesn't involve a direct killing than this case. Never. It's not possible.
And once again, how in the world did you get so invested in this? Where did this come from? I mean, this is a very specific case. This is.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened. So in November 2011, when this story breaks, I'm a documentary filmmaker specializing in stories where the media blew it, including I had done a movie called Media Malpractice, how Obama got elected. I had done a previous movie about the censorship of a film called The Path to 9/11. And I've also I've coached high school football in a couple different states. I covered college and pro football as a TV sportscaster. I grew up in Pennsylvania but wasn't a Penn State fan. In a lot of ways, I was the perfect person to look at this from afar in Southern California and go, no fucking way. There's no fucking way that this story is real. It just didn't make any sense. And I was just talking about the Joe Paterno angle at that point, because Joe Paterno was being caught up in this. And so I investigated it and did a movie called The Framing of Joe Paterno, which people can see for free online, which is really just the tip of the iceberg. And NFL Hall of Famer Franco Harris was the star of that film, and he and I have become very close. In fact, my friendship with Franco is about the only good thing that's happened in this entire case. And because he's been tremendous, one of the few guys that has shown any courage in this entire sad situation. And so it basically what ended up happening, Brian, was I was the only person in the position to say anything about the truth of this case. And I had to make a decision. Do I shut up and give it up for my own benefit, or do I speak out because I knew I was the only one that knew the truth and had the potential platform to do anything about it? And unfortunately, I made a very fateful decision that I couldn't live with myself if I just shut up and said nothing. And I did this knowing full well what the consequences were going to be. And they've been just as bad as I expected, if not worse.
Well, there are a lot of people that are putting a lot on the line. There are a lot of people that are risking things. When anytime you say something that could be misconstrued, or anytime you say things that you would rather take back and say that didn't come out right at all, I need a mulligan on that one. There's a lot of people who just don't want to get into the game. They don't want to participate. They don't want, like you said, the ones that wouldn't stand up and get in the way of Trump. Why am I going to say something? Then I'm going to get attacked. I don't know if you know the comedian. His name's Mitch Hedberg, but he's one of my favorites, and he has this joke about he's never got a hole in one, but he did hit a guy one time, which was way more satisfying. And he said, yeah, I would. And he says, and I would have yelled 4, but I was too busy mumbling under my breath, oh man, there's no way I'm going to hit this guy. There's no way oh my gosh, it hit that guy. So I mean, a lot of times people just get caught up in no, there's no way that's going to happen. And it makes sense. Why would you want to be subjected to, having your place picketed by a Soros-funded group? Why would you want to have, little some of these troll accounts, these sock puppet accounts, and have a campaign waged against you to bully your sponsors into dropping you? I mean, that's what things have turned into in 2017. And whether they're media savvy enough to go down that rabbit hole and understand that those things are happening on a daily basis or not, most people don't want to get involved. But I think that at the core of what makes this country good, I don't know how much is left of it, but I'm from Ohio. You're from Pennsylvania. I had grandparents over near home PA, Indiana, PA. Used to go over there all the time. I think there's a different kind of person in the Midwest. I think a lot of people just kind of take it upon them and say, look, if I see something wrong, and there's if I'm the first responder, I have to do something. At some point, it's nice to hand off and go, all right, can you run this for now? Now I need to go do something else. But
yeah, I hear what you're saying, Brian. My situation was really, truly unique, though, in that I had done 2 very long interviews with Jerry Sandusky in prison, and I was the only person to do that, and the only one who had ever recorded it, because you weren't allowed to record it. I recorded it on a pen that was actually in a recording device, which I smuggled in.
That is good.
And so literally, no one's ever going to be able to interview Jerry Sandusky again because of the rules of the Pennsylvania prison system, unless somehow he gets a new trial or whatever. But so the point was, I was literally the only person in a position in the whole world to tell the truth of what I'm now quite positive really happened here. And the consequence of me not doing it was that somebody who I believed to be innocent was going to die in prison in a horrible, horrible, horrible death, not to mention all the injustice to all the people that were tangentially impacted by Penn State, including Joe Paterno and the 3 administrators who are now have misdemeanor convictions on their record for things that never happened. So that, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to accomplish very much. I mean, other than I've given, I don't know how many people, but it's in the thousands somewhere. Thousands of people now know the real truth of this story that helps them sleep better at night, which is good. I mean, there's some benefit to that, and there's a record, at framingpaterno.com and elsewhere of what really happened. But I'm not going to be able to save this thing unless there's a miracle, because we're just going up, as I've said since the beginning, we're going uphill into the wind on ice with lead bricks around our feet. I mean, the media is 100% against us because they're completely invested in this fairy tale narrative. They're basically 5-year-olds who are being told that Santa Claus doesn't really exist. They're not going to accept that. That's
Right.
not a possibility. So, because they put all their chips on this one. This isn't like Duke lacrosse or the Virginia rape case or hands up, don't shoot, where they can correct that a little bit because, they didn't put everything on this, but they put all their chips on this one. And they were wrong because they're incompetent and corrupt. So,
well, and they're shrouded.
Anyway.
The whole case is shrouded with the invincibility cloak of having child abuse. I mean, who
Exactly.
wants to, just like
100%.
Newtown, just like
100%.
Sandy Hook, just like some of the Boston, some of these events, if you have questions and go, hang on, this story isn't putting it together. Are you really going to use kids like that? Are you really going to turn this into something else? You're going to use the dead kids.
Ding,
like,
ding, ding.
Come
No,
on,
Brian,
man.
you put your finger exactly on it. Here's what happened in a nutshell in this case. When you and I were, I don't know how old you are, but you're probably younger than I am. But
37.
when I was growing up, and in the 70s and even the 80s, the reality is that no one wanted to believe these stories, and a kid probably wouldn't be believed if they told somebody, and that's a problem, right? That's a problem.
Yeah.
But then we realized that there was a problem, and so then what did we do? We overcorrected. The pendulum swung too far in the other direction to now where a kid can say anything, and contradict themselves in any way. And if the circumstances make it convenient for the wrong people to believe that they're telling the truth, you're screwed. And I have tried very hard to ask people on the other side, like child sex abuse activists. By the way, I refer to them as terrorists. These are terrible people. I mean, these people are terrorists. And I've asked, could you please tell me what behavior would be inconsistent with a guy being abused by a man? And they can't tell me because it doesn't exist in their mind. They have created the rules so that, to use your point, to use your metaphor, I mean, it's a force field around anyone who makes an accusation. There is no way to prove your innocence. And no matter how ridiculous the story is, no matter how many times you contradict it, no matter how many times you said nothing happened, no matter how close your relationship was with the alleged perpetrator years and years after the so-called event, no matter if you can't tell what year the event happened in, which is actually true with a lot of these accusers, they don't know what year it happened. Forget about the day, the month, the time of day. They don't know what year it happened. I mean, it's ridiculous. The whole case is ridiculous. But to your point, you can't attack it because then you're, oh, you're attacking poor victims of child sex abuse.
Yeah, it's very similar to that Gold Star dad that came out and bashed Trump, and he's like, oh, he came out and swung back at him. No, not that yours isn't worse. I'm not a pissing contest. I'm just saying, like, my quote at the time was, he's a Gold Star dad. He doesn't have a gold shield. Like that doesn't mean that he's impenetrable.
Right.
Like if you want to step up and play national politics and directly attack the candidate, you're welcoming that. You don't have an invisibility cloak. You don't have a golden shield. You're just a Gold Star dad, which is awesome, which is sad because it happened.
These guys were all given better than golden shields because they don't even know their identities. That's the thing. I know their names, but their own friends don't know who they are. So their own. Think about this, because the media has protected their identities. Their own friends and sometimes their family members don't know who they are. So there's no one to call bullcrap on them. Because those are the only people that would be able to go, what? Huh? You? Jerry? What? No way.
Man, and I understand, once again, you understand why you shouldn't have to subject a kid to going public with stuff like that, and why they're shielded.
Right, but my point is we've gone too far in the other direction.
Exactly.
I get it. I get what the intent was there. The intent was good, but we've gone too far. I spoke to one child sex abuse victim from the 70s who had a football coach do what Jerry was alleged to have done to these kids to him. And he says to me, when I came forward, I had a hurricane wind in my face. And it occurred to me, yeah, that was wrong, but guess what? Now we've created a hurricane wind at the back. And nobody had a hurricane wind at the back more than these guys did, because Joe Paterno gets fired, and everyone presumes that means Jerry's guilty. And then Penn State holds a candlelight vigil with 10,000 people 2 days later on campus for accusers that they don't know anything about. They don't know their names. They don't know really their accusations. No one's spoken publicly. They know nothing. And then there's a prayer at the 50-yard line of the football game that Saturday, the next day, between Penn State and Nebraska, where both teams are kneeling at midfield praying for these same accusers.
Wow.
and these are people who would end up bilking the university out of $100 million, the taxpayers of Pennsylvania, and spending the money on their lawyers, sports cars, and casino trips. It's the most amazing thing I've ever heard.
Well, then what would your word of warning be then to any other school or the next person that comes under an attack where, obviously, because we know bad people are out there, whether to just say it, if people want to look at that Pizzagate thing and say, look, that's ridiculous, that story's garbage, blah, blah, that doesn't mean that there's not enormous pedophile rings that have been going on for a long time and that child abuse ritually was taking place at the Catholic Church. It's just because one thing is proven or disproven. So the next time that something like this comes up, it could be a real case, and it could be a made-up case to scam or bilk $100 million. What are the things you would look for in the next one?
Well,
based on what you've learned on this one, what should people watch out for?
To me, it's very simple. These things. There's no magic to this type of crime. There should be evidence. People should have been told. There should be a journal that someone wrote in, or a friend that someone confided in, or there should be a pornography, which there's no pornography in this case. There should be evidence that the person tried to pay off his accusers to keep them quiet, or to give them alcohol or drugs to ply them. Because, my God, one of the most absurd things about this case is that most of these accusers, almost all of them, were in the 13, 14, 15-year-old range. What 13, 14, 15-year-old male heterosexual, these are all heterosexual boys, engages in sex acts with an old man without alcohol, drugs, payoffs, or anything? And by the way, one of the most homophobic areas of the country, Central Pennsylvania. It's preposterous. Yet everyone just believed it. And not to mention that Jerry Sandusky is not gay. He's never had a gay affair. He's married. He's got low testosterone, which is why he never had kids of his own. I mean, so this heterosexual married guy with low testosterone is engaging in multiple sex acts every weekend with different boys
for years, well into his 50s and 60s, and no one's ever known this before?
And not a single one of these kids could fight him off. Oh, he just...
Right. By the way, his number one accuser was a star in track and a star in wrestling. He could have beat the crap out of Jerry Sandusky at 14. I can't get my 4-year-old daughter to take a bath when she doesn't want to. Literally, I can't get her in the bath. But Jerry Sandusky was able to somehow have oral and anal sex with 14-year-old heterosexual boys with no drugs or alcohol and no evidence of it?
Wow. Well, when you put it that way, now it makes it a little tougher to see the other side. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know what else to say. It makes a lot of sense.
Everyone went, "Oh yeah, wow, that's just horrible." It's absurd on its face.
Yeah.
It's just completely ridiculous.
So how does it all shake out? It's going to start petering out at this point. It's going to kind of...
Well, Jerry Sandusky's appeal is still going on. Graham Spanier's going to appeal. Underground, there's a lot of people who are now convinced, ironically, that weren't before, that Jerry is innocent because the accuser that testified at Graham Spanier's trial was so ridiculous. That was maybe one of the best things that happened to Jerry, is that Graham Spanier's trial, the prosecution put up one of their accusers, and everybody in that room, Frank O'Hara's and members of the board of trustees who, have been curious about Jerry's innocence, maybe skeptical of the whole thing, or at least open-minded, they looked at that accuser and they went, seriously? Because he was terrible. He was awful. So I think, at least underground now, there's a lot of people who are close to the story that are starting to go, holy shit, this whole thing is bullshit. But I think it's too late.
Would that be your hope that this could get overturned? You don't think it will, but I guess that would be the ultimate hope. Grand slam to win it all.
All I ask for is for Jerry Sandusky to get a new trial, and if he got a new trial and it was remotely fair, people would see what really happened here, and that's the only way. That is the only way this gets fixed. But I just don't think Jerry Sandusky's going to live long enough.
Yeah, the clock is ticking.
It's still in Pennsylvania state court. No Pennsylvania judge, and I've heard good things about this current judge that just got appointed to the case. But I've been through this rigmarole before, so I'm not going to get my hopes up. But the reality is that a Pennsylvania judge is never going to have the balls to put these poor innocent victims through another trial. It's never going to happen. If this gets into federal court, it's a whole new ball game, because a federal judge is going to look at what happened in the original Sandusky trial and go, what the fuck is this? Because this was the Salem witch trial on steroids. It was a joke.
And so what's it going to take to get it up to that level? Is that a likely thing, or is that a long shot?
It takes too much time. Jerry's 73 years old and in solitary confinement, and I can't believe he's still alive as it is. So the reality is, I'm no doctor, but statistically, Jerry's got maybe a couple years left to live, and there's no way to get it through there fast enough. So, my view is that Jerry will die in prison, and then in 10 to 20 years, a few of these guys will grow a conscience when they have kids and the money's run out, and they'll eventually tell somebody that this didn't really happen.
Well, John, it's always interesting speaking with you, and like I told everybody before, you got to follow him on social media. So real quick, where do you want people following you to stay tuned in with all your stuff?
Twitter, it's Zigman Freud, Z-I-G, Zigman Freud. It's a terrible Twitter handle, but it's a college nickname. So
I think it's a great Twitter handle, actually. I think it's great.
But that's how you can follow me on Twitter and on Facebook. Talk to Zig. On Facebook is how you find me there, and I'm very good about responding to any questions anybody has.
Yeah, like I said, if you want to have a conversation about whatever the current story of the day is, leave it on John's page, and somebody's going to get back at you, and often it's John. You go back and forth and have a good time with it. So anyhow, yeah, thank you for joining us again. I do appreciate it. I'd love to have you back sometime later in the year when we have a little bit more of a track record of this Trump thing to digest, and who knows, maybe some more info on this Sandusky case as well. But like I said earlier, happy belated birthday. Happy pre-birth. Congratulations. I wish you guys all the best, and you have a great, wonderful weekend, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Thanks, Brian. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right. Well, everybody, that is a story. That is a heck of a story. That's something that I had a friend. Well, not that I had a friend. I do have a friend, Mark Clare, with Lions of Liberty. Go check them out if you like libertarian stuff. And, you know, they're big Penn State people. That's where the lion, the roaring lion, that's kind of where that came from. And so they were like, yeah, you know, Jerry Sandusky. And I just started catching wind that they were really talking about a lot of this stuff. And John Ziegler, and it was interesting connecting with him last year to talk about this, because I hadn't even considered that there was another opportunity with this story. I hadn't even, you know what? I just didn't even, he looks how you would expect a person like that to look. And I didn't really care to investigate the story. That stuff's all pretty gross. And I don't like to expose myself to too much of that stuff if I don't have to. And in this case, I just didn't have to. I did a little bit, and I moved along, and so it's interesting. It's interesting. What if this was a big railroad job to get $100 million? I don't know. But I'll have the conversation about it, and I'm curious to hear what you think. I want to read your thoughts and your comments, so leave them. Probably the best place to leave them is on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia. Then the conversations just go on and on in perpetuity forever. So leave your thoughts on this. While you're there, subscribe. You can check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. On Facebook, facebook.com/thenewamericanmedia. On Twitter at American_media_. And on Instagram.com/thenewamericanmedia. Also, we have a Patreon page. You can sign up and you can sponsor us, which would be super cool because we like that. But yeah, seriously, I'm a fan of how John, I don't agree with him all the time by any stretch. But that you're not looking for that out of life. You're looking for good conversations with people, different perspectives. Check out his social media. It's great. It's great for good conversations, and I hope you enjoy our conversations here at the New American Media. I will talk to you guys again soon. I appreciate you. Take care. Peace.